Well, it is March here in Northern California, and I was actually worried about staying warm enough. I was not expecting to be too hot. So I am just taking a little break next to this little river that I found, cooling off a little bit, having a little snack. This morning I left my sister's place near Auburn, California, and headed over sort of across towards Mendocino National Forest. Well, I didn't get very far off the road here, and there's a no outlet sign on this road that I thought it looks like just goes right up into BLM land. Well, I knew this road passed through along private property, but it looked like it was something that would go through. I mean, most roads you drive on are surrounded by private property. So, wow, I already have to reroute pretty significantly here. Alright, it's not too bad. I'm gonna have to go right back out to the highway where I came from, but I see another way to get up into the area that I want to get to, and it looks a little more promising. So it was a nice little detour. It was a pretty little valley. I was kind of dragging my feet on airing down because I wasn't 100% certain if I might hit a little bit of paved road again. And ultimately I'm glad I didn't air down, because now I've got a number of highway miles to do again. So for air downs on this trip, I am testing out the InDeflate. So that is a air down and air up device that couples two hoses so you can do two tires at once. Now for years I've been pretty happy using my inexpensive little TerraFlex screw-on deflators. It's inexpensive, it's fast, it's easy. They do have a couple of disadvantages. One is that if you don't stay on top of them, they can get away from you and they can let all the air out of your tires. They're not the type of deflator that stops automatically at a set pressure, and so you have to stay on top of them and monitor them with a pressure gauge. I've seen these before, and I've been maybe a little bit skeptical because, you know, running a couple of hoses around seemed a little bit cumbersome, but what I found is that it's really not any more time consuming to get this out and set it up. These clip right onto the valve stems very quickly instead of being threaded on, and you can monitor the pressure directly right here. Also, this thing lets a ton of air out, and it's letting air out of two tires at once. It took me about 1 minute for the two front tires and then another minute for the two back tires to get from 40 psi to 25 psi. So that was pretty snappy. And the whole thing does actually fit pretty tidily into the bag that it comes with. And it's really slender, small, easy to fit in someplace. I found that it fits very neatly right into this behind the back seat here, where I've got my basket with my awning top and my Snow Peak fire pit. It all just tucks right in there. There you can see, it looks like I should be intersecting my original route. I wasn't quite sure what to expect on the ground for this leg of the trip. Really hard to tell even from Google Earth. Now, as we came up to where I was getting off the highway, I was excited by the sort of grassy meadows and oak trees, and it was really just some beautiful country. But the actual BLM land is pretty much the sort of scrubby, not so nice, unusable stuff, and all of the pockets of private land that I've run across have had those beautiful grassy meadows and the lovely sparsely distributed oak trees. So we'll see what happens when we get into the national forest. Maybe it'll be a little more foresty. And that brings us up to where I am now, taking a little snack break next to the river. But I'm almost to the national forest here, so let's get back on the road and maybe we can find a little more shade up there. So the spot where I was going to cross the river and take a road that goes up into national forest land, on the map it does show a tiny little patch of private land there, and there was a sign sort of ambiguously posted on a tree nearby that it was private property, no trespassing. I couldn't tell if it was still okay to go through on the road. There was nothing specifically blocking the road, but sometimes it's so hard to tell, and the way they post those signs, it's just so ambiguous, and I'm sure they do that on purpose. Fortunately, I had planned a number of alternate ways to go about my my trip here, and so I'm going to loop around another way. All right, this is one of my alternate routes. It's not blocked, there's no signs. We're not quite on the national forest, but it looks like it's 1,000 feet up the road, so I guess we'll just go ahead and take that. Yeah, I was contemplating whether I should just drive down into the next town and fill back up with gas, but I think I'm probably okay, hopefully okay for the next 2 days. So this route that I'm on now is not anything that I actually planned on exploring or wanted to come look at. It was just actually it was originally a alternative get back out of the national forest in case my originally planned sort of exit point was possibly going to be blocked or not work. And since I couldn't get in the way I wanted to get in, this is the next possible access that I had noted. This is just kind of miles and miles of slogging through dead trees and scrubby post-wildfire growth, and so far the numerous creek crossings are really the only points of interest. Coming down out of that first set of hills, found myself in this lovely little valley, But of course, all that nice land is private land. Can't access it. It's starting to get a little nicer. We're sort of out of the burn and into some natural meadows. I did find kind of a cool little area to camp down in there, a little valley at the bottom. It's 4:30 and you know, we're in daylight savings time now. There's still a lot of hours of sun left. I'll keep going. I'm gonna see if I can make it to one of the potential campsites I had marked. I think no matter what, I'm gonna have to backtrack out this way that I'm coming in. Worst case scenario, I may come back and camp in that little valley down there. Ever since leaving that little valley that I showed you where I said, you know, it might be possibly a camp in there, I've just been climbing and climbing and climbing. And it's funny because after being too hot all day long, I'm now running into snow. Oh my gosh. It's a good thing I got those skid plates on there. Well, the campsite I wanted to get to is out that road, which goes up to the top of this mountain that we're almost at the top of. Clearly that's not happening. I did have a second choice back here, and we'll go back and see. Well, it looks like this is the only possible campsite up here, and it's not quite flat, and it's kind of lacking a little charm with all the burnt out trees. We're up pretty high, and if I walk a little ways, there's kind of a filtered view. I was really hoping that I could make camp about now. I'm tired, I've been driving all day long. But I think I may go back to a spot I saw before. So there's the road that goes to like to the top of the mountain and down to another campsite out there that looked pretty interesting, but it's gated. There's the road that I took that ended in that campsite that was kind of blah. right here we're kind of at this saddle, and there's this really epic view to the west. Also, pretty epic view to the east. And we're up, I'll have to look at the elevation. There's a tiny little campsite here, a little firing and everything, and even some snow right there. It's not windy now, but I could see the wind picking up. And at the elevation we're at, I'm sure it's going to be cold. I would like to have a fire, but if it's windy, I feel kind of iffy about having a fire up here. I did check, there are no fire restrictions in this national forest at the moment. I'm allowed to have a fire, but there's a lot of dead dry fuel up here. There were some other campsites up there, but they weren't very inviting. So it's only 6:15, I still got quite a bit of daylight left. What I figured out is that I pretty much have no choice but to almost entirely backtrack my way out of here tomorrow anyway. So I am going to work my way back down the mountain a little bit to a nice little spot that I noticed on the way up. Fire ring there, sort of tucked up in a little draw of some sort. And don't worry, I didn't randomly drive off into some pristine meadow. This is a graveled camping area for sure. It's just got a bunch of weeds that have grown up on it, creating sort of a fuzz of green. Got a fire ring here, but I'm going to go ahead and use my Snow Peak fire pit that way. If these look like ridiculously short pieces of kindling, it's because I'm putting them in the little Snow Peak. Some people complain about the size of the medium Snow Peak because it's, you know, it doesn't accommodate normal sized firewood. But what I found is that it's very easy to cut your firewood into lengths that actually fit the Snow Peak. Jason. So until I get something else figured out, kind of back to the basics on the kitchen. I get this little fold-out table. It fits right in along with everything else. And I just got sort of a kitchen box, a box of stuff. On this trip, I've only brought a little portable stove. I do have space planned for my good Camp Chef propane stove. I've got a few things that I still need to do in there, so it's not quite ready for that. So for this trip, I just threw a few things together. We're gonna cook simple. All right, I've got camp all packed up. Gonna get on the road and see what else I can find today. Thanks for watching.